this was decided.
You really think you can change the future?
All of this was decided.
The truth is what you see with your eyes, not what you hear.
All of this was decided.
Good tidings, ladies and gentlemen of the lodge, and welcome back. On today's menu is the highly anticipated sequel to Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. I'm sure we are all eager to find out if the wait will be worth it, and what crazy secrets lay lurking throughout Hyrule this time around. Breath of the Wild launched a new era for The Legend of Zelda, and seeing as Tears of the Kingdom is a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, it seems apparent to me that Nintendo is ready to double down on this new era. But with all of that comes a load of new questions, and with that, I have an exciting theory to share with all of you here today. What if Tears of the Kingdom is a sequel to every 3D Zelda? And what if the inklings of this rumor trickle back to Breath of the Wild itself? Now with all that said, let this Legend of Zelda theory commence. So first things first, let's start with Breath of the Wild. Nintendo claims that Breath of the Wild exists at the end of all three timelines. Is this a lazy excuse to just start the timeline anew into the future? Or is there an incoming explanation inbound as we speak? Breath of the Wild had many callbacks and references to numerous Zelda titles throughout, and those references spanned across the three timelines. So knowing where Breath of the Wild lands on the timeline, let's start racking up the references shown to us in the trailers. On the very forefront, we see references to both Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword. Whether it's us hearing the cryptic Twilight noises or seeing the sort of neon floating runes, we see an obvious homage at the least to the Twilight realm. Additionally, in more recent trailers, we look at a landscape that appears very much to look like Skyloft from Skyward Sword, or at the very least it operates in a similar manner. And then of course, there is the diving mechanic as well. But what does that leave us with? Well, we've got Breath of the Wild, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword already covered. But Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and Wind Waker still remain. Now if we recall, Ganondorf is rumored and alluded to be a factor within this game. Ganondorf, despite his popularity, has only appeared in a handful of Zelda games. As far as 3D Zeldas go, technically there is only Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess. So, we have a good feeling and reason to believe Twilight Princess will be in play, but what about the others? Well, knowing that Twilight Princess timeline-wise lines up with Ocarina of Time, and that Ganondorf is in play here, we see how Ocarina of Time can be roped in when we realize that Ganondorf from Ocarina of Time is the same Ganondorf as Twilight Princess. And if we see these Twilight runes surrounding what may be the corpse of Ganondorf, then we have a reason to believe that this is indeed the same Ganondorf. And if this is the same Ganondorf, then we know that this would essentially be a sequel, Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess. Before we hop timelines over to Wind Waker, let us recall the popular theory of the hero shade in Twilight Princess, a game we all feel is likely to be involved here. When we recall the hero shade, if this is indeed the spirit of the hero of time, which is the hero in both Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, then if the hero shade were to appear in any way, then that would technically not only be a sequel to Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess, but Majora's Mask as well. Seeing as these three games sit on one timeline and allude to one another, we can see how this plotline can easily be roped into Tears of the Kingdom. So, if we see the hero shade at all, that one appearance would rope in Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and Twilight Princess. So as far as all the 3D Zeldas go, this leaves us with Wind Waker. Now if we recall some of Nintendo's comments from earlier, Breath of the Wild and its sequel exist at the end of all three timelines. So what merges these three timelines? Who knows? Maybe we see it in Tears of the Kingdom, but for now, that is besides the point. For starters, is there a reference to Wind Waker in Breath of the Wild? Turns out, there is. Perhaps the most prominent is the callback to Outset Island. Those of you who might recall Lurelin Village, well, it turns out it's very possible that that village is indeed a future version of Outset Island. If you want to hear more about this, check out Game Explain's video on this. They did a fantastic job. But if you need another reference for Wind Waker, then look no further than this silly blue lobster shirt. Anyway, with Nintendo's comments and these references in mind, we do see the ways Wind Waker can be brought into the mix. The final point I'll score in the Wind Waker column would be that in one of the last trailers, there was some language that may allude to potentially traveling Hyrule in ways like we did in Wind Waker. Now hear me out. Word for word, they said, as previously announced, the adventure in this sequel will take place not just on the ground as in the previous game, but also in the skies above. However, the expanded world goes beyond that, and there will be an even wider variety of features you can enjoy, including new encounters and new gameplay elements. So, if they are outright telling us we can explore via the land like the first game, and the sky like Skyward Sword, well, with the land and skies covered, where does that leave us? And with them additionally including that there will be new gameplay mechanics and things to explore, and ways to explore, it begs the question of what they are up to. Either way, it's going to be exciting to watch unfold. I'm not saying for sure we'll be able to travel the seas like Wind Waker, this is strictly just speculation, but man would it be awesome. So between Breath of the Wild's odd timeline placement, the Twilight runes and sounds, the return to Skyloft, the return of Ganondorf, and with the devs' comments in mind, it begs the question if this is the Zelda game that is going to bring it all together. I can imagine if you are Nintendo, you don't want to spend the rest of eternity accommodating a timeline that has been severed 3 different ways. Perhaps Tears of the Kingdom will be a vehicle by which they can consolidate it all under one roof, or one line. But anyway, that's just gonna about do it for us here today. So what are you looking forward to most in Tears of the Kingdom? Do you believe we will see all 3D Zeldas roped in? Are we in the middle or beyond a timeline merge? You let me know. But anyway, you all be good out there, be good to yourselves and each other, and I will see all of you beautiful sickos and normies next time.
All of this was decided.
You really think you can change the future?
All of this was decided.
The truth is what you see with your eyes, not what you hear.
All of this was decided.
Why not just sit back and watch it play out?
All of this was decided.
May your heart be your guiding key.